How's it going? Today I wanted to talk about the CIA's Operation Mongoose. What did this entail, you might ask? Well, to start, they tried to make Fidel Castro lose all his hair because the CIA thought this would destroy his image and confidence. I'll come back to that and all the other assassination attempts later, but let's start from the beginning. The Cuban Project, also named Operation Mongoose, was an extensive campaign of terrorist attacks against civilians and covert operations carried out by the CIA in Cuba. JFK authorized this operation on November 30th, 1961. The secret program against Cuba aimed at removing the communists from power, which was a prime focus of the Kennedy administration at the time. The name Operation Mongoose had been agreed upon at a prior White House meeting on November 4th, 1961. The origins of this operation started all the way back in 1948 though, when the CIA first started watching Fidel Castro's rise to power. As he rose, the CIA became increasingly concerned with his actions and political views. So, in the late 1950s, the CIA began getting more intelligence on Castro. They started suspecting that he was a communist. So, General C.P. Cabell noted in November 1959 that while Castro was not a communist, he allowed free opportunity for the Communist Party in Cuba to grow and spread its message. But that didn't really matter to the CIA. By December, plans were already being tossed around between high-ranking US foreign policy officials. They called for overthrowing the Castro government. An official report from the CIA states that by March 1960, the US had already decided that Fidel Castro must be displaced. Due to the United States' fear of repercussions from the United Nations, the plan was to keep it at the highest level of secrecy. Moving to April 1967, the Inspector General issued a report on the various plots conceived to assassinate Castro. The report separates plots into several time frames, starting from prior to August 1960 and ending well into 1963. While confirmed, the assassination plots are an imperfect history, and due to the sensitivity, no official records were kept regarding the planning, authorization, or even the implementation of such plots. A key form of documentation that was actually used to construct the timeline was oral testimonies collected years after the plots were originally planned. Now with all of that out of the way, let's start with the first three, possibly four, assassination ideas prior to 1960. The first plan in this time frame involved an attack on the radio station Castro used to broadcast speeches with an aerosol spray of a chemical that produced reactions similar to those of LSD. Nothing came of this plot because the chemical could not be relied on to produce the intended effects. Jake Earlstein claimed that a box of cigars, which was treated with chemicals, was also considered in a plot to assassinate Castro. The scheme was that the chemical would produce temporary personality disorientation, and having Castro smoke one before making a speech would result in Castro making a public spectacle of himself and losing respect. Esterline later admitted that he couldn't even exactly recall what the cigars were intended to do. He didn't believe they were lethal. Gopelin, who remembers the scheme differently, says they were intended to kill Castro. The CIA even tried to embarrass Castro by attempting to sneak thallium salts, a potent chemical, into his shoes, causing his beard and eyebrows to fall off. The idea of this plan revolved around destroying Castro's image as the Beard. The only person with a memory of this plot was identified by an alias. Castro didn't make the intended trip, and the scheme with the thallium salts fell through. In August 1960, the CIA initiated the first phase of a plan entitled Gambling Syndicate. It involved Johnny Rosselli, a member of the Syndicate of Las Vegas. He was to assassinate Castro, and if he was successful, the CIA would pay him $150,000. Johnny involved a co-conspirator, Sam Gold, a Chicago gangster. He also involved Joe the Courier, the Costa Nostra chief of Cuba. Several schemes in regard to the best way to deliver the syndicate poison considered during this time included something highly toxic to be administered with a pin, bacterial material in liquid form, bacterial treatment of a cigarette or cigar, or a handkerchief treated with bacteria. According to Bissell, the most viable option presented was bacterial liquids. The final product, however, was a solid pill that would dissolve in liquid. Rosselli, along with associate Sam Gold, used their connection to coerce Cuban official Orta to perform the assassination through his gambling bills. Orta, after being provided several pills of the highly lethal content, he reportedly attempted the assassination multiple times, but eventually pulled out after getting cold feet. The truth ended up being that Orta had lost his access to Castro prior to him receiving the pills, and thus could not complete the task in the first place. However, Rosselli did find another officer, Dr. Anthony Verona, to perform the assassination. Moving to April 1961, the plan to assassinate Castro by poison pill was cancelled after the Bay of Pigs. Furthermore, the Inspector General reports speculate that this attempt failed because Castro no longer visited the restaurant where the pill was supposed to be administered to him. The second phase of the gambling syndicate operation, now named Project Z, I'll put the full name on the screen, began in May 1961. It was headed by Harvey. Harvey was responsible for 8 assassination attempts on Castro, but none of these attempts were proficient in accomplishing any foreign policy objective. Project Z's main purpose was to spot potential agents and research assassination techniques that might be used. And in November 1961, Harvey became the head of the task force for Cuba. Nothing eventful happened up until late 1962. If you remember back to Johnny Rosselli, the member of the Syndicate of Las Vegas found another man, Anthony Verona. Back in 1962, Verona constructed a team of 3 men to strike at Castro. However, the plans were canceled twice, with the Inspector General's report citing the conditions inside, and then the October missile crisis threw plans away. The conclusion Harvey drew is that the 3 men never even left for Cuba. The connections between Rosselli and the CIA fell apart once Harvey had been notified that Rosselli was on the FBI's watch list. It is now 1963, and the CIA devised a plot to provide Castro with a diving suit contaminated with fungus. The plan was never implemented, but it is speculated that a diving suit had been purchased with the intention of giving it to Castro. Various other methods of assassination that had been thought of by the CIA included exploding seashells, having a former lover slip him poison pills, and exposing him to various other poisoned items such as a fountain pen and even ice cream. The U.S. Senate's Church Committee of 1975 stated that it had confirmed at least 8 separate-run CIA plots to assassinate Castro. Escalante, who was long tasked with protecting the life of Castro, says that there have been 638 separate CIA assassination schemes or attempts on Castro's life. The most infamous was the CIA's alleged plot to capitalize on Castro's well-known love of cigars by slipping into a supply a very real and lethal exploding cigar. While numerous sources state the exploding cigar plot as a fact, another suggests that the plot was made up by the CIA as an intentionally silly idea to feed those questions asking them about their plans for Castro, in order to deflect scrutiny from their actual attempts to assassinate him. Well, how did it all end? Fidel Castro died of natural causes on November 25th, 2016. At the age of 90, none of the 638 give-or-take plans or attempts ended up working. That was Operation Mongoose. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe, and comment what you want me to make a video on next. Have a good rest of your day.